legacy means. It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone.
Hey everybody, this is the Legacy of Westeros. I am Zach. I am back, and I'm feeling a hell of a lot better than I did the last time I was on this show. My voice was all scratchy, and I was coughing, and a whole bunch of other bull that I won't bother you with. But lot better, lot more on the mend, and really, really excited to be talking about the stuff that we've got on the docket for this episode. Shawn is back with me as always, and dude, we have been talking a lot about some of the logistical concerns about season 2, and this video is completely dedicated to the most up-to-date information that we've got on season 2, and I'm pretty excited for that.
Yeah, it dives heavily into why it's only 8 episodes. You know, I still think you can't look past finances turn the world, finances turn Hollywood. And hey, it's probably significantly cheaper to do 8 episodes while upholding the same quality, which is big time important for this universe.
Yep.
So I mean, I'm sure the fact that there might be some narrative reasons behind it, sign me up. But before we get into that, our multiple choice question for this video is, we had just brought up, and actually Zach wasn't a part of it. It was a tack on to the beginning of our last video. Is there was a rumor going around that Paddy Considine might have been spotted on set of House of the Dragon season 2. Now, I'd mentioned how I didn't believe it was coming from a very good source. There was no actual photographic evidence of it. So take it with a massive grain of salt. But basically, it raises the question, would you like to see flashbacks in House of the Dragon season 2 featuring Viserys? Your options are yes, no, I'm okay either way, or hell yes, give me more Paddy. Comment down below in the comment section and let us know your thoughts there. Zach, quickly, what about you, man? Where do you fall with this one?
I'm probably on that letter C option. I'm okay either way. I did love Paddy Considine's performance in season 1. But if we're talking about how the narrative structure of the show needs adjustments, then narratively, I don't know if it's such a good idea to be going back when the narrative needs to be moving forward. So I'm kind of torn. I'm kind of on the fence. I would really enjoy seeing more Considine, but I think if we're talking about how the narrative structure of the show needs to progress, then I think it's better to omit him.
Yeah, I kind of harken it back to Game of Thrones. I would have loved to see Sean Bean against Ned Stark
Yeah.
in some sort of,
Yeah, that's fair.
Red Witch scenario or something. Just something out there, fantasy like with Game of Thrones. But at the same time, think of how powerful his last episode is, even to the moment right before his death. Would have him reappearing again cheapened that at all? And that's what I'd be worried about with Paddy, because that last episode he's in is arguably his best performance in the entire season.
I mean, I would argue that it may be one of his best acting performances, period. So I'm with you that we don't want to cheapen the impact of events of season 1, but we want to make sure that whatever transpires, it helps with the progression of the story and other people's character arcs. So if we end up having a flashback with Paddy and Millie Alcock, for example, a previous conversation that happened down in the Dragon's Crypt or something like that, like I'd be all for that, because that conversation gave some undertones to the references of the Song of Ice and Fire. And so it helped narratively tie everything into Game of Thrones as a whole. And so, in that respect, I'd be open to maybe a flashback sequence if it made sense. But my concern is it being forced. As long as you're not forcing the issue, as long as you're not trying to squeeze it in there and make it happen where maybe it shouldn't, then yeah, I'd be interested to see what they can do with it.
For me, I really would like to honestly not see him again. Simply because
Whoa.
performance was so captivating. I'm really afraid you would hurt the impact that he had on the series. Now, I'm not saying you can't see young Viserys as someone else portraying the role similar to what happened with Ned Stark in some way. But I don't know if I want them to risk that. It's a hard thing to overcome. And I know it's tempting to put someone like that back in the role. I just worry about hurting the legacy that he has already left.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Let's talk a little bit about the Legacy of Westeros topic that we had scheduled for this evening. It's kind of interesting that you say that, because when I saw that letter D option, I thought, oh yeah, that's classic Shawn. That's what he wrote, because that's the answer he's going to give. So for you to say no, is actually kind of surprising. So y'all be sure to join us in the chat, and let us know what your thoughts are. But we do have some other thoughts that we want to touch on regarding season 2, and this comes from a fairly credible source um, over at comingsoon.net,
Yep.
talking about why season 2 is likely going to end up being an 8-episode story as opposed to 10, which we got from the previous season. And it comes pretty much directly from the horse's mouth. The head of drama for the entire station, Francesca Orsi, is the person being interviewed here. And Orsi, in an article, explained that the middle of season 2, kind of that 4, 5, 6 region, was treading water narratively, quote unquote. Treading water narratively, which led to the episode counts compression. Now, as you mentioned at the top of this episode, finances likely played a part in that as well. So it's a clever answer to provide in an interview. And I do think that may have played a part in it. But just looking at how Game of Thrones tells its narrative in a 10-episode season, history does not seem to indicate that that's something that Thrones does on a pretty regular basis. You take a look at episodes 4, 5, and 6 of any of the first 6 seasons, and I don't see any of them as treading water narratively. And so I appreciate the candor, but I also call BS just a little bit.
I think one of the things that has me concerned is a lot of the talk is season 3 is now going to kick off with, I don't want to say what event, but this massive event, right? Like, we're not going to get a slow build. You're going to be balls to the wall right out of the beginning of season 3. And then that's going to lead you into the home stretch coming into season 4. But season 2 is only 8 episodes.
Right.
No word on season 3, but my guess is safe money says it's going to be 8 episodes, if not less. So if that's the case, I sit here and we've done videos recently that showed Allison and Helena and that the memorial there for a character that we won't name in this video, but it's a significant event that happens. You also
Yep.
get to see the event, not just the post event, the actual event go down, and where that person and actually multiple people are deceased, and you see multiple memorials on each side, and that is only part of an 8-episode season, which includes another massive event. So by my calculations, man, in 8 episodes, we're going to have arguably 3 massive battles and another massive event, if not 2. That is not a lot of episodes to spread that out. And they still had to push stuff off to the next season. I'm
Yeah.
wondering if it would, like, if you just look at the narrative, if they wanted to push some stuff over to season 3, because season 3, from what I understand, would be the season where you slow down a bit before the end of it, and then you build up for the final table being set in the war, or at least in this round anyway. I don't know. I still think money is the biggest thing, despite this article not saying it. But like 8 episodes is not a lot of real estate to spread out all those massive events.
Yeah, she goes on to explain that it felt like a much more rigorous, more urgent emotional arc for the characters if they compressed the season. Based on all of those events that we're projecting, it is going to be a very urgent and emotional arc for our stars that remain. And I think that is the interesting part of the narrative that I'm looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. Because if we, as a viewer, don't have a whole lot of time to breathe, then it helps us relate to the characters a little bit more as well. Because if we, as a viewer, don't have a whole lot of time to breathe, how much less do the characters have? One event transpires, they are reeling from it, and immediately something else is happening. They don't have much time to grieve. They don't have much time to process, same as we as viewers don't. I think it has the potential to be one of the most compelling seasons of Game of Thrones we've ever seen, simply because we don't have breather recovery episodes like we're used to having. We go from one event to the next, and it creates a buzz on social media every week that something comes out.
The season of Game of Thrones, and some people will love this, some people will hate it. I personally like this comparison, although I got to watch my expectations because I might get my hopes up too much. The season I think about when we hear all of this and have already had a lot of it confirmed, what Zach just did, season 7 of Game of Thrones. That's my favorite season.
Yep.
And I have to tell you, when you're just looking at it, well, not just on paper, like there's actual video of the scenes being shot and the actors doing their lines, which
Yep.
hasn't been taken down. So like it could easily be taken down, and for whatever reason, Warner Brothers Discovery is just kind of like, yeah, whatever, it's out there. But like it screams season 7 of Game of Thrones, man.
And I don't necessarily hate that idea, because unlike season 7, season 2 of House of the Dragon does still have source material it can go off of. So it's not like the creators are embellishing on any of these events. They are taking actual events that have transpired, actual chronicled events for people that want to read the book. They can, and they can anticipate what is on the horizon. These are things that have happened, that are going to happen. It's not like, oh, well, they never said Daenerys was going to do this. They never said that John was going to say this. Like, there's none of that type of criticism that can take place, because there's still stuff to cover in this world, in this era of Game of Thrones. And so I personally am looking forward to that, because I don't think there's as much margin for criticism other than execution, like how the scene is executed. But to say that all of this is happening in one season, it's gonna be a ride for sure.
Yeah, I worry about it being compacted. And yet, like I said, I was worried about season 7 being that way, and it ended up being my favorite season of Game of Thrones. So
Yep.
I am stoked to see what ends up happening. And hey, already it's kind of shocking how fast time's moving, but we're just a little over a year away. We just went from a year and a half prior to this channel being launched, and we'd be talking about this stuff over on our other channel, Fandom Empire. But all of a sudden, the channel's launched. It's doing well. We've started to build a little community here, and
Mhm.
we're just a little over a year away from seeing House of the Dragon season 2.
I can't wait to build this community even further. Thank you to the hundreds of people that have already subscribed. We're looking forward to when that number hits 1,000 or beyond. Feels like it's just a matter of time. And in the meantime, we're going to keep pumping out content for y'all. We're going to keep building some Patreon exclusives for you to be able to see beyond the wall. So smash that like button, smash that subscribe button so that you know exactly when new content comes up, and join us over at the Fandom Empire Patreon page so that you can get all of the perks that you need to be able to go beyond the wall. But this is literally just the beginning. We are just laying the foundation for some of the really awesome stuff that's on the horizon here at this channel and here for Game of Thrones. So we're really, really looking forward to it. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of The Legacy of Westeros. Thanks so much for viewing. Be sure to give us that answer to the multiple choice question and follow us on social media. And we will see you next time right here on The Legacy of Westeros.
Do you know what legacy means? It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone.